Hello and welcome to the clinic day on 11/29. For the most of this clinic, it's going to be focused on some game feedback. Okay, that's Discord side. We're mostly going to be focused on a class session for the start. This includes settings, game features. From there, I might do a replay review. I know that someone here does have a replay that has not been reviewed yet. Or if we want to do an 8v8 or whatever team size match that we have available, we could do that as well. So, does anyone have any questions or topics that they want me to focus on for the start?
I have one. What would you say would be a good order of operations for you to attempt after you've, say, been raided or most of your economy's been destroyed? What are the steps of things that you would tend to do to try to rebuild and put yourself back into the game to give your team a chance of winning?
So the priorities would be primarily focused on energy production, reclaim into metal income after that. If you have a lot of build power, basically, your goal is to just rebuild as much of your energy production as possible. So. After that, if it's T2 stage, you probably should be waiting for a T2 con from someone to just get started on your T2 eco. The question is really how much can you afford to spend on your economy after the raid versus how much you need to get back into unit production. And on top of that, if during the raids, if you need to reclaim, you should be reclaiming things that are non-production, like T2 labs. That's stuff that should be probably reclaimed if you need the metal quite quickly to rebuild your economy. So. It's a bit more nuanced, though, is the other thing to mention as well. By the way, as a reminder, a lot of people here are muted by default, so. Okay. So I'll be streaming my point of view on Discord at this time. So. That's a bug report I have to make now. Oh my god. So for those that are really beginners, ignore the starting build order that I'm using right now. There's a whole bunch of them that you can use. So. Are you able to hear my voice? Rocket Cat?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. 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 So, a key thing about Bard to remember is factories are important, and you don't need that many of them. For people, if you come from games like FAF, you're used to probably having about 5 to 10 labs by the end of the match easily. In Bar, you want to really minimize the amount of labs they have and focus on boosting them as much as possible. So one of the things that you might see in the game is a constructor doing this behavior where it goes out around and then down to assist a lab. This setting specifically is for Factory Guard. This is for builders specifically. This affects anything with build power except for res bots. So this is something I would like to recommend turning on.
Battle started.
It basically means that you can set a queue for constructors, and then if you want to switch to combat units, you're able to then basically plan out your build power with constructors. Next, you will also notice that they might have a unit in production right now, and they want to switch over to getting a Centurion out next. You can do this by pressing Alt and left click on the unit. The next unit that comes out will be a Centurion, for example, and there will only be one of these made. I'll get back to that, Juniper. Okay. So, yeah. One other thing to mention with constructors in Bar, all constructors produce some amount of energy. Bot cons, for example, they produce 7. Vehicle cons produce 10. So. For these numbers that you see on these units, and you notice how they're automatically being assigned a number. If you were to select a unit, select them, then press Alt and a number, you will assign the unit to an auto group. Every unit that gets produced or exists on the map will be assigned to that number. There are also control groups. You can do by pressing Control and a number. It assigns the units into the number that you want selected. So. The next option that I'll be showing off real quick is the converter widget. Right now you will see that there's nothing in the top next to the wind icon until this converter is built. You will see that there's a energy converter usage. So, basically this shows you how much energy you're spending on converters and how much are you utilizing them, and the exact ratios of how much metal and how much energy you're spending. Almost never do converters with solars with the intention of producing metal. So. For wait. For pausing production, you can press with grid menu. You can press Y with the building selected, and that puts you on wait. Basically, it doesn't progress or degrade the production of the unit. However, it's worth noting that regular units can simply finish the production of the unit at the same time. Factories on wait will not produce anything, will not queue up the next unit. For regular default bindings, it is going to be W. Rocket Cat, sometimes when I queue a unit, it interrupts the current production. Is this a bug or am I fat fingering something that should exist. What I believe is currently the case is that factories on repeat and factories on non-repeat have a different function there. So whenever a factory is on repeat, the unit always gets added after the unit gets produced. Whereas if you're talking about on non-repeat, it cancels the unit in production and switches to the next one. Just like that. So.
If it's on repeat, it's a different hotkey to cancel and do that.
Moving on. Sorry, I forgot to mention, to enable the converter widget, you need to go to simply type in the filter converter, and I'll bring up the option.
Battle started.
Nutty, it used to be worse to actually remove the unit from the queue. I'm glad that got fixed. So, okay. Next, I'm going to be.
Battle
Oops,
paused.
wrong button.
Started.
I'll get to those in a bit. Does anyone have questions about what's been talked about yet, or am I free to move on? Okay. I'm going to assume it's safe for me to move on. Moving forward, I need to get units that are good for this purpose. Everyone's favorite does seem to be fairly good. Okay. 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 I see people typing. I'm assuming that there's a question that needs to be asked. Dark Spirit, it wasn't metal refunding when you key something with Alt. Whenever you cancel production of a unit in a factory, you always get the metal back, but you don't get the energy back.
Low power.
So, in that. That's on Discourse and Juniper, I think. Either that or I have an issue with my GPU. And that's a really bad issue.
It's a driver issue.
Yes.
We had this issue on a different stream with a friend and I, and one of the new NVIDIA drivers apparently does that.
Let me check the recording real quick. Yeah, and okay. Yeah, that's on Discord's end. So, with my drivers, okay, fun times. So in bar, one of the things that you might notice with people is that they have they always issue move commands in a line. You can do this by simply right-click dragging units. There's also fight command. Move command, it tells the unit to go from point A to point B. If there's a target in range, the unit will not stop for that unit. With fight command, it's a move to the position, but if there's an enemy unit, the unit will stop and shoot at that target. Next is attack round. Simply by pressing A and left clicking a point, you can tell your units to attack round. If you hit A and right click drag, you can tell your units to attack round in a line like this. This is really important for air units, especially bombers. Next we have patrol. Basically it's between 2 points. As if it's a fight command. Incidentally, you can also do, you can set your units to repeat and simply have them all move back and forth like this. And the units will gladly walk between the 2 points. They won't be stopping for enemy units. It's just regular A and then left click for a point, right click drag for a line. Yeah. Finally, there's guard. Basically, just leases a unit to another, and the units will simply just move about and follow it. One of those units is not moving because it doesn't need to. Okay. Are there any questions about unit orders? Oh, I forgot to mention one last one. This is a flavor type, though. There is a command called set target. You can tell your units to set as a point, or you can do it as actual targets themselves. The purpose of set target is to say that it's to tell your units that you want to target whatever is prioritized with set target. However, if your units can't shoot the prioritized target, they'll shoot something else. In settings, if you put in the filter target, and take on set target as default, whenever you right click a unit, your units won't try to charge into that unit. It will try to it'll just set the target for that unit like this, and you can move your units around freely. Will air bombers spread the attack out along the line equally with a right click drag? Yes. What's the best way to use control groups? It's personally down to your preferences. Here, let me get these units to stop for a moment. To explain my auto groups, for example, although mine are probably messed up still. And I need the right units built. And this is going to require a few labs, so that. So anything that I have the way that I organize my auto groups is anything that's meant for melee or just main battle unit purposes, like hounds, pawns. I tend to put them on the same auto group. This pawns, you probably want to have them on their own auto group, them, for rating reasons. Things like the Janus, missile trucks, and medium tanks are all on the same one hotkey because they're all just the primary usage unit. I didn't notice I hit my mic. Other units that are secondary purposes, like rocket bots, I tend to put them on 2. AA for me tends to be on 3. Radar and support units are always on 3 as well. For air units, I tend to have them be their own separate auto groups that are different from ground units. So 7 and 8, for example, are for scouts and fighters. 8 is for bombers. So it's really just, and like I said, it's really just a personal preference thing. So, okay. Are there any questions that people have that want to have answered at this time about controls and units? Okay then. So fight command, I would recommend it when you want your units to not charge into an enemy force. For example, with rocket bots, they if you use fight command with rocket bots against an LLT, the rocket bots will always try to keep out of range. Move is when you're trying to actively micromanage the units, but you also would be using things like set target instead. Fight command is really good for if you don't want to pay attention that much to the units, but you want to have them do something. Any other questions? I see someone typing. I'm just waiting for the answer to be asked, the question to be asked. So. So for bots and for vehicles, the usual opener, it is map dependent, but I'll actually show that real quick Usually your goal is to have 2 or 3 mexes built before lab. You do not want to go any more than 4 mexes, because that usually puts you too far behind on the factory. Also, you want 60 to 80 energy production before having the factory down, in my experience. So for example, this is a fairly popular start on Comet Catcher. Basically, it's 2 mexes, 2 solars, and LLT. You move forward, build the 3rd mex. The solar is nice to have, and then factory. You can skip the solar if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend any less than these 2 solars to begin with. And usually on this map, you would be looking at vehicle factories coming out. Juniper, that's a very map dependent question. See, this is actually a good example of a case of 2 mexes and 2 star actually makes sense. You have that option up here, for example. In fact, this one's actually better for this kind of build. It should let you post pictures as a reference. Solars versus wind. Basically, whenever the average is about 10 is when I start looking at it. If wind it has a minimum value of 5, wind becomes quite interesting to have built in general. So it's really just a question of how good is the wind at the time, and what is the minimum of wind. If wind is 1, I would consider having at least 1 basic solar or an advanced solar later. For bismuth in the northern lanes, there's a 2 mex and a 4 mex start. Generally speaking, the 2 mexes are better because you get a better forward lab, whereas the 4 mexes in the back are, if I recall it correctly, are better for just later economic investment. So. You can always, generally speaking, you can go 2 mexes. You can almost always go vehicles off of 2 mexes. You can do that, but you might want to focus on more expensive vehicles like a Janus or a Pounder with your commander as you push forward. Vehicles equals flat train, bots equals rugged train. That's more just a question of where your units can and cannot go. There's a lot of use cases on IF Horse to be vehicles, and there's a lot of use cases for being bots is better. IF Horse is a very good map for bots because there's a lot of spots where bots can go that vehicles can't. It's more a question of how are you going to be able to react to your teammate falling or doing well with vehicles or bots, and that's what you want to be careful about. So. Vehicles in general do have a really good they have very good cons for their cost. The downside of vehicle cons is that they're not stealth, but they produce a bit of energy and they have a lot more HP than res bots. So getting reclaim with vehicle cons is actually really good. Usually, usually that's a case of unit composition. Things like plasma bots do have some advantages over medium tanks, but medium tanks have the HP and speed advantage. And there's also rocket bots as well. So. Okay. Any other questions? See.
Battle paused.
Players sticking to their unit to bots or vehicles throughout the entire match. It's more just a question of what units do you need from either the bot factories or the vehicles in general. Switching to the T2 factories is actually quite painful, and that's quite time consuming, especially if you don't have the T1 cons to begin with. In general, it can be worth switching to vehicles from bots, or switching from having bots and having a vehicle lab for some very specific units in vehicles. Juniper, that depends on the situation a little bit more. Plasma bots don't do that well versus rocket bots because of the range difference, and the speed difference isn't enough. So, it might be better focusing on making sure that your units are repaired and you're focusing your shots a little bit more. Ground fire with rocket bots can work sometimes, but there's a lot of other things to consider. Let's see. One of the things that you might want to consider is if you're forced to retreat, have cloaked cameras on the ground. That way, whenever you're firing your shot, the rockets are always firing shots with line of sight, instead of just randomly blinking with radar blots. Okay. I'm gonna open up the lobby to AV8 if people want to join and play. Is the Clinic Day lobby. If some people are okay with having a replay review, that's also a fine choice to have as well. Juniper, I might take your replay in case. Okay. See you, Rocket. Do people have replays that they want to submit? Is that done? I don't know. Okay, that'll be perfect. One sec. I'm just going to close the stream temporarily. So, yeah. And by the way, don't be afraid about using your mics if you want to ask questions in voice chat.
Okay, that helps a lot. That's so much easier. Gosh, I hate the Discord chat. So, are you looking for like 8v8 replays?
Any replay.
Sure, then let me have a little think about which one would be interesting to send in. Sure, this one.
Yep.
I'm laning here against Baron. I lost the lane in the end because of console difference, but early game I was also losing, or I was holding. And it was a new position for me.
Okay. That's an interesting...
It is quite interesting. Should
Yeah.
I send in a more straightforward game?
No, this one's fine because this is an odd thing that most people normally don't deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So. I forgot I need to update that lobby for
It
the
was
engine.
a weird situation, so that's it's definitely threw me off.
Yeah, because...
And also didn't play the best, but that's fine. Everyone has bad games.
Yeah, this is a match where you have a very slow start into a lane.
Uh-huh.
So your focus should be on... Your focuses are going to be a little bit different to normal gameplay. So. And you're dealing with a Rust star on the other side, so that makes things even harder.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So let me know when or like
I am looking that up.
stream is not yet up, so
There we go.
but yeah, I'm playing against a very solid player, and it's very much a toss of a coin who wins between us in lane.
Yeah. So this is the starting question. What makes this start really hard is that you either have to get factory over here,
Mm-hmm.
or you really have to rush out somewhere else because you can't path forward from the top of the hill. So.
Yeah. And both have their disadvantages and advantages, as I
Yep.
find out.
Oh, that... Yeah. So what I would recommend for these two wins, just move them over here real quick when you key them, because your goal is to get these two mexes over here.
Mm-hmm.
And or that also works. What you're doing, which is queuing them. Always queue wins in a way that doesn't block you in.
As you see, I solved that in a slightly different way.
Yep. So. Oh, so
But
if we
that's
didn't
a good
start
thing.
there. Okay. On the replay, it shows that for the start position, Sophie started here. but it's actually over there. So I actually thought you were having it coming with a different start. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I think
The
putting the
stream
lab that
is
far forward
really-
is.
Yeah, the stream is like really the bit like the graphics really go blocky. And
I think
it's
you probably
very
would've-
hard for me to see.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, YouTube.
Now it's fine.
Okay. That's bitrate. That's going off right there.
I think you would have been better off to put that lab next to your mexes at the start, because your lab is hecka delayed at this point, and then move it later.
Maybe.
And you also don't have anything in the back building eco now at this point, so.
Well, that I will ship a constructor over. But, yeah.
Well, the
You
good thing
are
is that you
right.
have a transport. That LLC placement isn't horrible, but one of the things that you might want to consider, and this is something to just consider, have an LLT right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a very good idea.
Oh dear, I can already see why. Yep. Whenever you leave your start base, your starting area unprotected, and you're going to do a rapid expansion like this, it's almost always worth having an LLT there, just that way you have something that protects.
Did that scout die to that max?
Yeah, it died to the
Lucky.
max. Was
Keep
that
in
Baron?
mind-
I can't see the colors right now.
It was
Keep in
Baron.
mind, whenever
Oh,
a
okay.
scout is harassing one of your mexes, if you don't have anything to catch it, you can self-D the mex. A lot of times it'll catch the scout.
I always forget to do that.
Yeah. It might kill the wind turbine, but that's about it.
That's a price I'd pay to get rid of that scout.
Yeah.
Same.
I would not recommend a Stumpy for a. I am so sorry. I'm still used to the old names after about 2 years of this. Instead of for Stout, I would recommend first Janus in this case, because you need something that can do a lot of damage to a target, and preferably kill that target at the same time. That's what Arbarn is doing right here.
Okay.
And the thing to remember about Janus is that if they're with something, they're very powerful. If they're by themselves, they're not that strong. And that's primarily why he's able to push you away from the start. So.
That and stouts don't do very well into comms.
Yeah, that's true.
The stouts basically need to kite versus comms.
And it's a very short range window.
Yeah, so I currently cannot see the screen right now. It's too pixelated and to no color at all. So
I'll
that
have
makes
the.
it very hard for me to see anything.
Sorry about that. I'll have this is being recorded, and I'll have it on YouTube, and you'll be able to see.
Okay.
Yeah. Something tells me it's just an issue with your internet with Discord. One of the things I might recommend as well, if you're going to have 2 medium tanks and you're going to be playing footsie with an enemy commander, you might want to have a missile truck with it, with a Janus, just to catch random ticks that come by. That's just primarily for the vision and not for anything else. Our barn is up to 2 Januses at this time. I would not recommend you getting a nano turret this time, even with a single constructor. You just simply don't have the energy production for that.
Yep.
Okay.
That was a big misplay there.
Yep. Yep. I have 40 megabytes to upload, so I'm. It might be something on my end though. Yeah, 40. Okay. So with the Janus, with you skirting with it and trying to kill targets, that's actually a good thing. That's what Januses need to be doing.
That's not a good thing,
Or it is a good thing that you're doing that. But whenever you're trying to push into Januses, try to make sure that your units are spread out a bit. And even though there are Januses on the field at this time, you should still have an LLT or two. Just to at least to take damage or something like an uncloaked camera, because that'll take a shot that you would rather have a camera rather than a LLT or a tank.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely need to work on my Armada start.
Yeah.
Armada tank, sorry.
I
Janus
don't think
in general
yeah.
is something I definitely struggle with a lot still.
Yeah. With your, do you have radar coverage in this area? Yes, you do. So one of the things I would recommend is if you're going to try and get your units out to push, ideally instead of going into the whole bunch of Januses that you're constantly footing with, you're better off just going off to someone else's lane and doing something with that than just taking shots from Januses.
Yeah, definitely. So. I could have like skirted around him, or definitely. It's also the place that I'm fighting, constantly having to get up the ramp.
Yep.
It's such a bad.
You might want to actually.
Of engagement.
Yeah. In this case, you might actually want to consider going with bots instead of vehicles for the start, because if you get pushed back to this ramp, bots rocket bots just have the ability to shoot down the ramp quite well, and you'll maintain a range advantage until artillery and missile truck spam comes onto the field. And you'll see Sophie actually doing that a lot with rocket bots. So. Okay, there's that.
What is the thing I'm building right there? I cannot really see it.
You're building a vehicle artillery right now with 3 nano turrets. Oh, and a beamer.
Yeah, probably not the best.
I would actually recommend the beamer's not actually that horrible, but
the nano turrets, like I didn't have to build that many.
I would be reclaiming these solars from the front, and you're doing it for Cliss. That's
right now it's over.
Instead of the beamer, what I would recommend is getting some walls. So to demonstrate my area of the game, I'll pause real quick. Oop. This debugger is actually really good for seeing things at times. What's the key binding for rotating the camera? I forget it.
I think hold Alt, and then move your mouse.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So this hill is a bit steep. And one of the things about bar that I tend to take advantage of is the area of the game I work in. So walls right now would actually be really good because you have a whole bunch of units that are shooting up into an area, and units in bar generally don't do that very well. Especially Recluse, because the missiles only go up for a bit and then they go flat to the aim position of a unit. And what makes the beamer especially bad is that it has a very, very tall aim position. So all the shots are going to go higher than normal, and they're also going to go into your back area as well after that. So instead of a beamer, some walls and some dragon maws, or what's the
the lightning pop-ups.
Dragon claws.
Question though, when I started building the beamers, did I see the recluses?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, this was more of a
Yeah,
surprise than anything
Yeah,
else.
the console difference, man. Like, that's really what lost the lane there. But yeah, that's actually really nice to hear. And I was hoping the beamer would do well against the Janus.
It does okay. It's just that you would be better off having things like the lightning turrets or with some walls surrounding it just to absorb the hits. That's not being reclaimed.
Definitely.
And on top of that, I would strongly recommend getting a jammer up here somewhere. Arm jammers are really good, so which makes these a lot makes units like vehicle artillery and recluses much worse. Yeah.
Definitely.
I
actually
wouldn't
like-
try charging in like that with all of your Genesis at the same time. I would only be doing that with like 1 or 2 at a time. Your goal is just to keep them away.
Yeah, definitely. Just buying time.
Yep.
That was what I was
So-
trying to do. But yeah, this is a very rough lane.
Yep.
And I think I would have lost regardless, even if I was winning very hard initially.
I wouldn't recommend focusing the commander at this time. I would try to get as much into the spiders as possible. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's saying too as well. Light tanks and rovers do really good versus these spiders, and they don't really have the units to counter rover spam that well.
Okay.
If you still have the transport,
Were they ever given an engineer or no?
No, they never gave an engineer. I believe
have
our
been
Tekker
begging
is
for an
Armada
engineer.
vehicles. Yeah, but they were like Armada vehicles, I think. So there wasn't anything I could do.
Because I mean, you do have the transport, so you can make it work. T2 artillery are great at stalling.
Yeah, definitely, but
Yep.
once again,
Oh,
I'd have been eating my
Tekker
lab
was a
for
bit
it.
of a lobster.
Yeah, I'd have
I
been
do
eating
like
my
my,
lab to try and get it.
Play of escaping there and trying to
well,
do something what will come.
Yeah, what I would actually recommend is using your commander. Well, it wouldn't work now, but it would have worked prior. If you had the transport, just charge into the spider bots and degun them all. That was something that you can do.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, this
But-
at this point I had already like resigned to be like, okay, this game's over, GG. But yeah, I definitely could have done more things. I was very low, I believe.
Yep.
I don't see it because the colors are weird.
you were at like 10%,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and that's 2 Januses, so that's expected to be death. So
Mm-hmm.
there.
Well, that's the game.
Yeah, and ends in about a minute, and this is a hard loss at this point. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you were, you weren't given the T2 combat, they did do the thing where they built your T2 mexes regardless. I'm not really a big fan of that normally, so. Okay. Any other replays that people have?
I mean, I also have some where I'm actually doing really well, but I feel like there's also plenty of things that can be pointed out.
Yeah, I think with vehicles, I don't think it's a good start with how delayed it is. I personally prefer bots because they can do a little bit, because they do things a little bit quicker on delayed starts. Especially with the fact that you have units like the Centurion and rocket bots. Yes, Nutty. If the Techer builds the mexes for the player, on top of the player's mexes, yes, that gets auto-shared. The reason why I don't like it is because because the player that's getting the T2 mexes eventually doesn't know that they're being given a T2 mexes until the start, and they can't dedicate their resources to that T2 mex.
If I was given the con here, I could have maybe like tried to pork it up, with like a Scorpion or something.
Probably.
I mean, they probably still would have pushed me out, but.
Okay. Juniper sent in a replay to look at. Oh, Nutty, that is a widget that does that.
Yeah, that's annoying. That's why I usually like to queue up things before I transport them. Since that works now these days, and that didn't previously.
I'm not sure if I can. Nope, I'm too sick. Sorry.
Oh
Oh, you're
gosh.
fine. Text will be best. Your voice sounds like it's being tortured when you speak. Yeah, no, don't worry. Get better soon, or as quickly as possible.
COVID is OP. It's been killing me for 2 months now.
Juniper? I
Yeah.
can't run that replay. It's because the game engine that it's being run off of is not available.
Oh,
Actually, I might be able to do it through Choppy. I use Skylobby for replays because it makes everything easier, but sometimes this occasionally happens. Wait. Actually, let me check something real quick. It might just be a Skylobby bug. Okay, it works. Okay, it works. I'll be doing this replay next. So, Juniper's replay is going to be done right now. So,
All good.
okay, so. The one that you submitted, Juniper, here, not the one that's in the Academy chat. Okay. No. The one that you submitted. Oh, then never mind. We're doing the same thing then. So for this map with the 4 and 2, just because you have to do a bit of walking, the 4 makes a little bit more sense at this time. Okay. if the start box was somewhere like right here, maybe like right here, you would have been, that would have actually been a better case to do the front mexes.
So that, good luck everyone.
I'll the recording should be up in a bit. So Max Solar Factory. I'm just trying to make sense of your start order because it's all over the place. It's not bad. I would recommend not queuing your wins at the edges of your starting area where you have. Ideally, you would put them next to one of your solars and have them both be concentrated right there. Wins are really blocking for LLT placements. So in the recording right here, basically, is where I would recommend your 2 wins to be. Yeah, Sand Panda. You can do 4 mexes on this area because they're all right next to each other. One other thing to mention with your radar placement, I wouldn't recommend it being away from your factory as you did right here. I would recommend placing it right behind your factory. Where I in the replay you'll see where I ping. That. Vehicle scouts then going for vehicle cons. That's actually good. I didn't see the order of units that you queued up, so. I'm gonna have to figure that. That's my GPU and Discord disagreeing with each other. Rat. Okay, here. Okay, for the first con, doing that. I wouldn't recommend using your con to push forward like as you're doing right now. I would actually recommend that you have your cons in your base and have your commander be the one that pushes forward. Because you have lost all of your raiders and you don't know what's going on in your lane, basically. The good thing is that you have a friend that's killing Gruntstar coming in. Yes, Chad, it's very much a me issue.
No, like it's a video driver issue, not a you issue.
It's the same name.
I know it is.
I'm joking.
But I want to make sure we're not misunderstanding.
Yeah. This one's also the grunts. Yeah, with your pounder for the starting unit, that's not actually a bad unit. It's just that you want to use it more aggressively. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend using your pounder to guard your commander because your commander can safely defend itself. I would recommend your pounder be paired with one of your vehicle constructor staffs going out and about. So, getting an east storage at this time. I don't think it's horrible, but I think you could do it a little bit later, after maybe a solar or some additional winds. And you're about to lose a Vecon that That's why I mentioned having the pounder with your vehicle con. So. Okay. I like how you're positioning your commander and the pounder by trying to get as many of the grunts in one spot as possible. Where's the little T out? I must have struck with some RT. That's actually a good thing.
Are we expanding E at all?
Yes, slowly.
Okay, I didn't see
With wind farms like this, what I recommend is, especially on a metal high map like this, I would recommend having a nano that's just slowly built by a Vecon, somewhere like right here. And what you would do is you'll have a few ones queued up. You would go build the nano, and then you would finish out the grid, and the nano would assist the rest of the grid.
Yep.
So, ideally, you want your cons to be queuing up the buildings themselves, but the nano assisting wind farms is really good. For nanos, you don't need any more than one. So, with wind farms, also now coverage is more important than density. It should be in front of the first order. Yeah. That. I wouldn't recommend pushing your pounders in a situation like that, or make sure that they're not just standing still. Remember when I mentioned that you could put, I don't know if you were here for this yet, but if you set your units to repeat move in 2 directions, that's a really good counter versus regular T1 vehicle artillery. It's even better if you do it with things like Rascals or Ticks. Oh yeah, that happens too. Pounders don't really do that well. Yeah. Yeah, it's effectively turn mirrored. Pounders don't do very well versus LLTs, generally speaking. They trade about equally on the unit numbers themselves. You're not using your missile trucks to provide vision for your teammate. That's something that I would like to point out. Yeah, that's expected at this point. Yeah, I have 1,000 metal in the bank. Actually, it might. I don't think you have the energy income to support what you need, though. This is a use case for fight command, by the way, but I would really not recommend focusing the enemy commander. You really need to focus on the enemy units that are around you. That's, yeah. Ah, okay, then never mind. carving those shots into the LLT. That's amazing. Yeah, it will. I don't think place your commander here was the right choice. I think just pulling it back further and further would either be better, or having one of these run to the... And you would need to have one of these run to the front right now. Because you need to get turrets down very, very quickly.
Is their vehicle factory queue still forever long?
I think so.
You can kind of solve the issue of needing more cons and needing more units by making your queue shorter.
Yep.
'Cause you were floating a good bit of metal there, and if you produce, usually I go for like a 5-to-1 ratio, 5 units, 1 con. The more cons you get out, the more units you produce, so it kind of maths itself back out. And you have more BP for later too.
And you're dealing with T2 mexes, and this person is still producing units. Juniper basically shorten up your queue with units instead of having just focus on getting as many units out with an occasional con. So. I would not recommend getting converters at this time, even though you do have the energy production for them. One other thing that I would recommend having is just what you're starting to do now, but you should have done a little bit earlier, is have a vehicle come forward just to grab reclaim. At this point, basically, you're in need of help from other teammates because you're going to be doing T2 eventually. And T1 core vehicles don't really do that well versus T2. The reason for not going for converters right there is basically because you're overbuilding the amount, and you're overbuilding the amount of converters that you can support in the first place, and you're wasting a con on something that is that you could task for much more important tasks like getting reclaim. Reclaim is always more important than converters. And you only needed 4 converters, and that still would be well over your energy budget. At this point in time, I would strongly recommend that you reduce the amount of units that you're producing to try and get a T2 constructor from someone, or start making sure that someone is going to give you a T2 constructor at some point. You're in a hard lose situation at this time, and I don't think this raid really makes that sense unless if it hits build power. And it didn't, so. I went to something. Yeah, that's. it's actually a really hard choice at that point because you don't know what you're raiding into, and it might or might not work. With the fact that there was this amount of units on the field in the first place, I would not assume that raid would work, especially on a map like Bismuth where the lanes are extremely tight as well. Thank you for reclaiming your T1 basic solars. Do you reclaim this? Okay. I would actually recommend, to speed up the process of getting your T2 lab down, reclaim one or both of the cons that are assisting the factory.
Also, don't be building the A cellar at the same time.
That too. Actually, you can safely,
That's a lot of converters, by the way.
yes.
That's way too many converters, Jesus. You need like 3.
Well, Juniper's using a lot of it because there are teammates that are overflowing energy. I would recommend reclaiming the E-Storage if you were short metal after the 2 T1 cons.
Also, if you're going to have that many converters, your energy slider's too high.
Oh yeah, that too as well. And resources in bar do not work the way that people expect them to. This is a no, by the way. Given what's just coming into your front line.
I mean, you have an E-Storage. There's no reason not to turn it down.
Well, considering that the base just south of Juniper is getting demolished, you don't need any more advanced solars, by the way. So, yeah. The reason why you don't need any more advanced solars is basically just down to your allies are producing so much energy, or they're about to lose their production, and you can take advantage of their E production. And that should be reclaimed at this point for the T2 Max. Advanced solars. The unfinished advanced solar, I should say. That's unload priority, that's unload. And you're about to get your first T2 Max in time for enemy units to shoot it. I would be canceling this unit. At this point, it's just a hard lose. I would start looking at how to prevent your base from being feed for the enemy team. So self-ding or reclaiming the T2 lab. Correct, you don't get the metal back, and more importantly, that's my metal that can be spent on other things. So. Okay, I'll be doing the next replay. Is there anything I missed by chance in that replay with Juniper? Okay. Oh dear, I think I might have made a mistake with the recording. I'll have to check it afterwards. In case the matches were not recorded on the video side, I'll redo them. It'll be fine. I'll make sure to have that all done. Okay. Okay. So this is Rat's replay that I'm looking at right now. Advanced Solars, I don't recommend reclaiming them for mexes unless if they're they absolutely have to go.
Honestly, half the time I forget my T2 Solars are even there.
Yep.
Until I'm building a fusion.
Solar is basically you want to keep it until you're either into advanced fusions or regular fusions, at least. That's when most of the T1 eco can go away. So for your starting build order, actually that's really good. Your eco is rather protectable. Yeah, this is going to be a rough lobby. So. I see 3 people on one team, and that's just asking for a stack. So for your wind farm, I wouldn't recommend how you're doing your wind farm like this. Just like I said with Juniper, I said you want to have a nano with your wind farm. This is going to be really slow. Yeah. Also, with this radar placement, I would recommend having it behind the lab, just because you saw your commander had to walk like this. That would have been minimized if this radar wasn't right there exactly. And don't be afraid to... Actually, that tick. Well, it died. Yeah. This is going to be... I can already see why this is rough. Basically, we're a little bit slow on getting your units out. And you went forward without protecting your base. The good news is I have a fair amount of reclaim. Yeah. You don't want to go any more than 3 constructors. I'm assuming this radar here is a mistake. Or no, that's someone else doing, not yours. What you're doing with your Genesis is actually really good. It forces the enemy player to do something else. So. You forgot to keep your replacement mechs. If someone was on your team that had bots in South, I would recommend getting Resbot just to get the 2 wins that you could have resurrected. Yeah, this is actually one of the trickiest positions to work with because you only have 2 mexes and your where you can contest is basically where your expansion is. That's a good thing focusing the mechs, but I don't think that's going to pay in lost opportunity. Especially considering that you lost Janus right there. Actually, it might pay for the lost opportunity. Same. Do you have the reclaim widget always on, Rat, by chance? Or is it whenever your commander's selected or something else? Yes, I would recommend switching it to always on because you're missing out on this medal right here for no reason. It's called the Reclaim Field Highlight. You can do always enabled. It's really good for highlighting wrecks that you're going to miss in an area. You need to bring a constructor to the front to start reclaiming, or and you might want to ask an ally for a red spot. This is going to be fun for you. You can send your commander off there. That's actually perfectly fine, but I would still recommend having a constructor. Not doing this with your commander and constructor. You need your units to be repaired. Especially when there's a lot of mistrucks in the field, you really need to have repair up. And LLTs in this will probably not help you that much. So you need to be careful about where you're linking your side. So. The Dragon Mod, by the way, is not a mistake. It's actually good to have. I just would recommend having it a bit forward, somewhere out here. Well, that lightning turret paid for itself. I don't think you should have your commander cloaked at this time. You don't have the energy to even attempt it, and even if your allies were overflowing energy, which I doubt, which they weren't doing anyways, you're just wasting energy that could be spent on other things. Again, with your commander, you can also, I would recommend still having it move up and just getting this mechs down, because you're forfeiting metal per second. If you have any less than 250 energy income, or you have about this amount of storage in the first place, you should not be cloaking your commander, really. It's only if you need it for very short periods of time. With all the metal reclaim they have access to, you might want to consider start trying to buy T2 from someone or help someone get a T2 lab quicker. So. I don't think anything is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 minutes. But with this, still, you notice how far behind you are on energy compared to everyone else. That's just with this slow expansion. In your case, because you're in such a winning position, economically, it is worthwhile for a short period of time. Because you want this person to start either producing units or giving you a T2 con. Your opponent's not T2 yet, so it's not. So it would actually be an advantage to you to have T2. And this is the point when you should start reclaiming your missile trucks or not using them for offensive reasons, because they're going to fall apart. That's the thing with monsters they have to be careful of. Did you want me to pause for a second so you can look at things, or? Oh, okay. Oh. Okay, never mind then. Okay. I wouldn't recommend getting medium tanks for this case or Januses. I would just be recommending either getting some light tanks or rovers just to handle the Mausers for a bit. Okay. That's a great way to spend Mausers. Okay. Oh no, you would use rovers to just kill the Mausers directly. And this is a case where light tanks would be better than Stumpies or Janus. I meant Stouts. If the rovers are spread out, just keep them right next. Just you have to surround the Mauser directly, otherwise that's not going to work. I think you dedicated a bit too much to this push. So. And I would start considering self-ding units just so that they don't get the reclaim. I don't think anything very close is going to happen next minute. Or at least something that you can handle. Because I can see this being your death. And there's not really anything you can do about it. Yeah, that's what they're meant to be doing. Yep. And where they were pathing was nothing that you can easily see. They were pathing right through here. And that's just a blind spot normally. Actually, let me check real quick for the time. Oh, this is a 51-minute match. So is there a point where you're really taken out of the game, or is there anything past this point that you want to be looked at specifically? Yep. That happens, don't worry. Oh, no. Okay. If anyone else has a replay that they want to be picked up, then post a link in the Academy chat. One other thing that I would recommend, Rat, when you're in the T2 stage is start thinking about building your economy in a much safer position than where you are right now. Just behind the north player, the person that starts above you, just behind the hill, is actually a good spot for your eco, rather than where you're putting it, which is a lot more rateable. Where the ping will be in the recording. Yeah, nothing can. The thing about being behind the hill is that nothing can really hit that position, unless if it's either a spider or if it's shooting from AD space, basically. Also, the Bertha spam hitting your fusion is the other reason why you don't want to have your fusion right there. Your T2 maxes are perfectly fine though. Also, at this point, Rat, you shouldn't really be focused on. You should just be focused on ecoing up rather than getting units out. You're not going to be able to get any units that are relevant. Yeah, the Rat's position is that's one of the hardest positions in the map in general, just because you have two lanes that are very polarizing for you. The north lane, because if you lose the hill, you lose a lot. And those positions have a lot more eco than you will ever have. No, it's the exact opposite. It's very few positions are harder than this one. I would actually say straight's easier than this map. For any of the positional straight is easier than this position. Because you really don't have the economy on this map to do anything. And this probably explains why I went. That makes sense why it took 51 minutes. The loss of the log cannon is what made this loss take a little bit longer than I thought it would be. As soon as I saw the log cannon, I thought it was going to be a lot shorter. And the only reason why I'm playing this faster is because other people haven't posted a replay yet. Oh no, not reds. I'm talking about orange. In north. Yep. And it was just above your main base. Always try to zoom out whenever you can. Both of the wall cams were core, actually. Okay. Any other replays going once? Going twice? Okay then. If no one has any other replacement, I'll be ending the event right now. Unless if people have other questions, please ask now. Then I'll be ending the event at this time. Thank you guys for coming. So,
Thanks for hosting.
You're welcome.